Court Reporter with Stovall and Associates.
Good evening. Welcome to Court Reporter with Stovall and Associates. I'm your host, Mike Aglinski. Tonight we have one very special guest. He is the Republican candidate for the Nevada Attorney General's position, Travis Barrick. Thank you very much, Mr. Barrick. I appreciate you being on tonight.
Thanks, Mike. It's good to be here.
And then, actually, we're going to cap the show talking about a new financing plan that I've been telling some people about recently, and I wanted to give an update on. We are in place with our legal Pay 90 plan, and we'll talk about that at the end of the show, but we have three good segments to talk to Mr. Barrick about tonight. So, anyway, one thing I always ask a lot of our political candidates when they come in are your roots in Nevada. You've been born and raised here, but you kind of left. Give me some of your background as far as born here and then what happened.
Well, actually, my ancestors settled southern Utah, were part of the original pioneers, and then my parents were the first generation to leave southern Utah in the late 40s because there was no hope of economic advancement in southern Utah at the time. It was inconceivable that anybody would want to stay there. Or most people left. My parents moved to Las Vegas. When my mother moved to Las Vegas, there were 24,000 people living in Vegas.
In the mid-40s?
Late 40s.
Late 40s.
And I was born in Henderson at Rose de Lima Hospital and grew up on East Bonanza Road in Las Vegas. Bonanza and Bruce, a neighborhood that has seen significant change,
sure.
shall we say. A lot of wrought iron.
Yeah.
And went to local schools there, Hallie Hewitson, Roy Martin, and graduated from Rancho High in class of 73. Go Rams.
Go Rams. Well, I am a Bishop Gorman graduate, so go Gales.
Yes, go Gales. Well, you were the other school. There were only 4 or 5 schools in high schools.
Exactly. No, I know. It's pretty funny because if you start talking about guys that are, in their mid-40s and older, they talk about that. There's 5, 6 schools and how they also used to have parties. And he goes, everybody would be there. He goes, everybody in town. So certainly not the case anymore.
Not the case anymore.
All right. So, and then that caps your life, your young life in Las Vegas. What do you do at that point?
I met a girl who was from San Diego, and so we moved down there, and I spent basically the next 26 years living in San Diego as an accommodation to her.
You didn't like San Diego?
San Diego, like San Francisco, is a different place, and I'm from Nevada, so in a lot of ways I was treated like a hick, partly because I am a hick. But then, and which swerves into what I did down there. I was a carpenter for 26 years. I started out on a masonry crew, hauling bricks and mortar, and worked my way up to being a carpenter, and then got my general contractor's license, had my own business, had a cabinet shop, but did all phases of construction from residential, commercial, and industrial. So I got a really broad-based experience in the construction business.
So for basically, you came out of high school, moved to San Diego about a girl, 26 years in the construction industry, all the way up to general contracting. So at this point, we'll say you're mid-40s, and what happens?
Well, 10 years before that, I had about every 9 months, I would convince myself that I liked being a contractor.
Right.
And that would last about 9 months, and I would realize there was more that I wanted to do with my life. And there was nothing wrong with being in the business, but I just had an appetite for more, and I knew some judges and attorneys, and I was impressed by them. And I also realized that they didn't really have anything on me. They weren't all that much smarter than me, so I thought, it dawned on me that was the thing that I wouldn't forgive myself if I didn't do in life, was go to law school. So in my mid-30s, I started night school, and I got an associate's degree. And I remember halfway through the first semester of night school, knowing that I wanted to go to law school. I remember coming out into the parking lot at night.
That's a long road.
That's a long road. I remember that first semester going, I'm halfway through my first semester. Man, I'm on my way. So 10 years later, I graduate from law school. So it was a long path. I got an associate's degree, bachelor's degree, and then a master's in public administration. And then, and one of the luckier things that ever happened to me, I was accepted to the University of San Francisco School of Law, which is a fine Jesuit institution.
Absolutely.
And so me and who is now my ex-wife, but my wife at the time, we moved up to San Francisco, and I went to law school there full-time, did it in 3 years, graduated with 12 extra units, and worked the whole time.
So you were night session law?
No, full-time days.
Wow. Wow. And you still worked the whole time?
Worked the whole time. When I moved to San Francisco, I sold every tool that I had accumulated in 26 years of being a carpenter. And when I arrived in San Francisco, I didn't even own a screwdriver. Because
Really?
I knew the temptation would be, if I needed money, I would go back to construction. And so that forced me into working in law firms from day one.
Right.
So I had a number of
good point.
jobs during law school, which was my first introduction into, the actual practice of law.
Mm-hmm. Did you think when you started the actual practice of law, although you had an outsider's perspective with judges and attorneys that you were associating with, were you impressed or were you taken aback, or did you feel like I finally made it, or my 10 years in school will be worth it?
All three of the above.
Yeah.
I was impressed with the caliber of people that I dealt with. A lot of the folks that I was in school with were very impressive. They were smart, rich, beautiful, nice, friendly. There was nothing left to like about them.
Yeah.
That's my joke. So I was impressed by, I was disappointed in the lack of serious work ethic among some people, especially the younger entitled folks.
Mm-hmm.
But having been in the private sector in the construction business, you're paid for what you produce.
Absolutely.
And that's been a consistent theme in my observations throughout my legal career, is there are folks who think that it's okay to get paid just for breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a difference between being busy and productive. And so I bring that to the table as a candidate for Attorney General. I know the difference.
You know what? I would have to say that that's a really nice thing to hear somebody who's running for public office say, because sometimes you look at these lifelong bureaucrats and they don't realize that production is really what's important. You're right. You don't get paid to breathe. You get paid to produce. And I don't care in what industry you're in. So that's going to wrap up the first segment. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we'll actually get into the Attorney General's office, some platform issues, and other things, okay?
Great, Mike.
So we'll be right back after this commercial break.
Court reporter with Stovall and Associates.